Hey YouTube, this is the art of prepping. We're doing the next one here. It's the top 10 most difficult man-made disasters to survive. And this took a few minutes to kind of compilate, but this was these horrors that can be, the attributes of very poor decision making and actions or even inactions by humans can lead to massive destruction and massive death. The first one I thought of, though, was an EMP, and mainly from a country trying to destroy another country or take over or at least cripple them, sending some type of a missile or projectile up in the upper atmosphere and detonating it. And that EMP, which is very somewhat similar to like a solar storm EMP effect, could cripple the electronic and grid infrastructure. It wouldn't destroy, of course, any buildings. It wouldn't even kill any people. But in the long run, it would kill the people because the infrastructure is so fragile and the infrastructure is so desperately relied on that there's been a lot of reports, and even the government has a report that shows that within 1 year, if the United States was mostly crippled by an EMP attack and the grid was taken down, that within 1 year of not having electricity or a grid, approximately 90% of the people would be dead. So it would be a devastating blow, especially since we don't have a very hardened infrastructure. I have been hearing that there's been some power companies throughout the United States are slowly, hardening their transformers and power stations, but there's still tons of them that are not prepared. Number two, nuclear attack. Just level a whole area out, and the radiation fallout would last for generations. People it'd be a slow death or a fast death, depending on how close you were from ground zero. Number three, dirty bombs. It could be packed with all kinds of horrible biological or chemical weaponry. Once again, it could just be a horrific death, contaminate a whole area for potentially months, if not years. And it just would be a more of even a psychological, sometimes even more than a death rate issue, even though they're all horrible. And it depends on the size of the bomb and so forth and where they're placed. But another horrible thing, a world war would be number four. These wars are getting more intense. If you look at World War I, we have traditional infantry and artillery. World War II, now we have nuclear bombs going off. And World War III, I wouldn't be surprised if we have some type of a new type of bomb, that may even surpass the neutron bomb and the atomic bomb. And it's these fusion bombs, they're getting more advanced, and it's something to be concerned of. Number five, the New World Order. People believe that there is a New World Order that's breaking up the sovereignty of nations and taking them over from the inside, mainly through the banking sector and through lobbying and through a takeover of a manipulation from the government officials from within. They're trying to consolidate the nation states into regions, districts, or federations. And at such point, they'll consolidate those into just one world order. And then they'll have their one world religion and one world bank system. The one world bank is already here, so there's a lot to this. And that would be my number five. The next one would be a nuclear power plant going critical. When the power fuel cells can't be cooled, they become unstable and very much likely could be, it could explode and leak. If their containment system is not going to be able to contain it, it could leak. Large clouds of radioactivity material could creep across your nation. It just would be devastating. Not only just kill people potentially fast or slow, but just gets into things. It would just be a decontamination nightmare. And the lingering effects would actually last for hundreds of years, and it would just be a horrible thing to go and try to live through that, and very difficult to prepare for that. For the short term, sure, you could have radioactive suits and respirators and so forth, but you can't walk around for years in those kind of things, or have that many types of air filter canisters laying around. It's a difficult one to prepare for, those really long-term ones. Okay, the number 7 is global economic collapse. And we're always being told that this is where we're going right now. We have so much debt, more debt ratio than we need or can handle. We got people who are allowed to borrow more money or borrow money, period, that they shouldn't really even be lent to. We got governments that are, watering down the currency and doing all kind of money printing, causing inflation. And we got all these monetary policies that just don't make sense. It's just like it's like the United States, for example, is on life support. We have the Federal Reserve, which obviously is not federal and it's not even part of the government. It's, a private, banking cartel. They dictates our monetary policies, and they just create money out of thin air, and it's backed by nothing, even though people say, well, it's backed by the petrodollar, or it's backed by our military or the good faith of our country. But we don't have good faith in our country, and our military is weak. And, and the petrodollar is completely manipulated. And we all know, though, that petroleum, just like silver and gold and all these things on these exchanges, they fluctuate greatly. And they're used as tools and weapons to destroy other nations and countries. And it's a no-win. It's a no-win if we ever had a major collapse. It would just bring everything down. So that's why they're trying to avoid it. But there is a point, though, that you have so much debt. I mean, how many more trillions of dollars, do we need to be in debt before we hit the breaking point? And that's what people wonder about this. You can't go potentially indefinitely, can you? I don't think so. And number 8's overpopulation. Not that I really believe that we're overpopulated at all, but the overuse of raw materials in certain areas and the population centers in certain areas are a little bit extreme. And I would agree with that. And so what happens there is that you'll have an abundance of stress on that particular ecosystem, or a particular stress on the raw materials or the availability. And so what happens from that is there's a pollution, there's a raping of the earth in that area, and it causes disruptions and a disability for the planet to provide for its creatures. So I could see maybe long term down in the future that if the planet triples or quadruples in population size, we may start having some pretty big issues, even more so with food and clean water, and maybe just the availability of usable resources. But there's always ingenuity, though, that we have to remember, that humans can adapt and they can become more some more more conscious about energy resources. And also energy resources in general tend to get better over time. So I'm not sure if we can get through all of the problems in the world through just energy technology, but it's one option that we couple it with other things and other ideologies. We can probably get through it, but the idea of just abusing the raw materials to a point that they're non-existent in a region can just be devastating to a population center. And it would be really hard to prep because, after you used what your preps were, you couldn't replenish them. Okay, and number 9, extreme pollution, which kind of goes in hand with the number 8. But this could, be in our waterways, polluting our land, our soil. It could be even seed pollution with the GMO seeds. It could be what we're doing in our waters, what we're doing, putting fluoride in there and contaminating the ground, the groundwater, and spraying in the upper atmosphere, like NASA's admitted that they've done, with like barium and aluminum sulfates and stuff and all this crap. So at some point though, you start destroying the planet, and we're already at that critical point now. It's just starting to jack up the planet because we keep bombarding it and we don't let it have enough time to heal itself. So the earth can only deal with so much, and then it's just going to start shrugging us off, and in order to reset its ecosystem. Number 10 would be the destruction of major ecosystems, and such as the oceans, forest, and jungle areas. So with all that pollution we just talked about, it would be the complete destruction of, like what we're seeing now, from Fukushima, from Japan, all that radiation still spewing out into the ocean, and the death of all this wildlife and all these different type of fisheries. I mean, that's just going to eventually just completely kill a massive part of the ocean. And from that, it has massive, repercussions though for food sources and for wildlife in general. So those are my top 10 there for the most difficult man-made disasters to survive and to prepare for. If you have anything extra to add, please feel free to put them in the comment section. Thanks for watching.